My son-in-law is poor. He's a disgrace to the family. My father-in-law, Charles Jones, said this to me at our wedding venue. It seems he doesn't approve of me marrying his daughter. When I previously met Charles, I talked about my family background, which didn't go over well. My mention of a previously poor family seems to have triggered his outburst. But then my brother, Joseph, came over and delivered a shocking statement to Charles. Look who's talking. Do you know why the guests didn't show up? Charles claimed I gave the wrong date to the guests, but that wasn't true. As a result, Charles turned pale. Exposed by Joseph's words, Charles faced a nightmare. My name is David Williams. I just turned 60. I've been a cop for decades, but working in a safe area, I haven't dealt with many dangerous incidents. I have a brother, Joseph, 5 years younger than me. Joseph is mild-mannered and has never been in a fight. Joseph rarely got angry with family or friends. Joseph works as an ordinary office worker, but he's great at magic tricks. He often performs for those around him. His skills have been almost professional since childhood, and we thought he'd become a magician or street performer. In fact, our parents used to say, David wants to be a cop, but what will Joseph be in the future? Maybe a magician, it's not good to assume, but he's really good at tricks. However, Joseph didn't want to turn his hobby into a job. He kept magic as a hobby and became a regular office worker. On the other hand, I pursued what I loved and ended up in my current job. Since childhood, I was interested in helping people and catching bad guys, so I became a cop. Working as a cop is fulfilling, but there's one thing I gave up on: marriage. When I was younger, I thought about finding someone special, starting a family, and having kids. But I could never take that step. I've thought this for a while, but you're an old man now, right? Didn't you ever want to find a wife? I've thought about it, but the nature of my job always comes to mind. I answered Joseph, who asked me this when I was in my 50s. Being a cop comes with its dangers. I didn't want to worry anyone, so I was hesitant about starting a family. However, life is unpredictable, and I found someone I want to be with. There's someone I really want to be with. Retirement is near, and I work in a relatively peaceful area, so I won't be leaving her alone. Now, I'm preparing for the wedding with my beloved woman. A few months later, on my wedding day, I arrived at the small wedding venue by car. After parking and getting out of the car, I recalled the events before arriving. I remembered the way to the venue clearly. I had been here many times for pre-wedding meetings, so I didn't get lost. However, I did spend some time helping a lost little girl on my way here. It was a bit difficult since there were no guardians nearby, but luckily the girl had a cell phone. The lost child incident was quickly resolved. I called her mother, who was at a nearby supermarket, and handed over the girl, so it was settled immediately. Thank you, sir. Thanks to you, I could see my mom right away. Thank you so much. I took my eyes off her while shopping. How can I ever repay you? No, it's my duty as a cop. Don't worry about it. Even though I wasn't on duty today and was just a regular guy, I couldn't ignore a child in need. This area is relatively peaceful, but things have been getting a bit dangerous lately. I'm glad I could hand her over to her mother safely. Relieved, I walked into the wedding venue, thinking about what happened. I greeted the staff and confirmed the details of today's ceremony. So, the start time will be as scheduled. We've also prepared the surprise event, so there are no problems. The staff at this venue are excellent, and there doesn't seem to be any trouble. David, good morning. Today is finally our long-awaited wedding day. Then, my soon-to-be wife, Maria, arrived, and we listened to the details together. Maria is around my age, and we met a few years ago. I found her helping an elderly person on the roadside while I was patrolling in a police car. From there, we started talking occasionally, became close, and eventually got married. I'm so excited. It's going to be an unforgettable day. Maria had always dreamed of becoming a bride since she was a child, but she hadn't met the right person until now. She had almost given up on her dream, but meeting me allowed her to fulfill it, and she once told me how happy that made her. Seeing her so excited makes me smile. After that, we changed into our formal attire and waited in the dressing room for the ceremony to start. Even though I had seen it during the fitting, Maria's wedding dress was stunning, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. Maria was a bit embarrassed, saying, "Wearing a wedding dress at 60. But she looked absolutely beautiful. My heart was filled with happiness. However, a few minutes later, a staff member with a concerned expression came to us in the dressing room. "Excuse me, but some of the invited guests haven't arrived yet. Do you have any idea why?" The staff member's words were unexpected. "Is that true?" "Yes, no one has shown up." It was hard to believe, but it wasn't a mistake. The staff's words were clear, so Maria and I headed to the venue. There, we found an almost empty hall. For some reason, none of the invited guests had arrived. Maria, looking shaken, spoke to me. "David, what is going on? We were supposed to have our wedding today." "I don't know. We sent out the invitations and told them the date is today." As we exchanged puzzled looks, another person arrived. It was my father-in-law, Charles Jones. In his 80s, he still carried himself with a firm presence that belied his age. I didn't want him to see this kind of trouble, especially since he would be my father-in-law after the wedding. Charles entered the hall, looked around and exclaimed, "Did we get the date wrong? Isn't today supposed to be the wedding?" I responded to Charles, who looked puzzled. "No, it's not a mistake. The date is correct. But for some reason, no one has shown up." Charles, who was spoken to, didn't look at me but turned to Maria. "No guests. What an unfortunate problem." He shook his head theatrically from side to side. I found his attitude suspicious. However, Maria didn't seem to notice Charles's odd behavior. She looked down and murmured with a near tearful expression, "Starting the wedding without any guests is too much. It's almost time to start, Dad. Do you know anything?" Charles, who was asked by Maria, shook his head and then glared at me. His attitude seemed to imply that the problem was my fault. "I can't believe you couldn't even properly invite the guests. I'm disappointed in you. Maria was looking forward to today." "I'm sorry. I had handled all the communication with the wedding guests. So, if there was a mistake, it would inevitably be my fault. Did my insistence on personally sending out the invitations for this once-in-a-lifetime event lead to this failure?" At that time, Maria had another commitment, and since I was inviting people who had helped us, I decided to handle it alone. If I knew this would happen, I should have asked for help. A friend's kid was struggling with childcare, so I went to help. I should have checked the invitations too. "It's not your fault, Maria. It's probably my fault. While working, colleagues sometimes tell me I'm trying too hard on my own. Even though a past incident is the reason, I should have asked for help in such a crucial moment. I've heard about you from your brother, Joseph. It's admirable that you work as a cop, but you can't seem to rely on others. Having a sense of responsibility is good, but causing problems on such an important day is disappointing. I'm truly sorry." I was apologizing to Charles. However, Charles's feelings didn't seem to be satisfied with that. "I can't entrust my daughter to someone like you. Maybe you should reconsider the wedding." "No, I don't want that. Do you know how much I've been looking forward to this?" As I watched Maria and Charles start to argue, I tried to recall what went wrong. I thought carefully about the tasks I performed and the process of sending out the invitations. But no matter how much I retraced my steps, I couldn't find anything that could have caused this trouble. If I don't know, I just have to ask someone. Thinking this, I took out my smartphone. I searched through my contacts for a friend's name and was about to call. But before I could press the call button, I heard Charles's words. It was a mistake to try to marry a poor man in the first place. Come to think of it, he never thought well of my family background. My family was a bit poor when I was a child. That's what he's concerned about. When Maria and I started dating, I met her parents, but it wasn't a pleasant meeting. Initially, we were having a friendly conversation, but when I talked about my family background, they frowned. If you start associating with a poor family, you'll become poor too. Such families lack education and are often rude. You'll end up unhappy. Moreover, Charles's family is quite distinguished. So, he might have a mindset that he can't approve of a family that doesn't match his status. As proof, you're facing trouble today. Don't say such awful things, Dad. There's another reason for today's problem. I don't think David made a mistake. With tears in her eyes, Maria threw herself into my arms. Dressed in her bridal gown, she was the most beautiful I had ever seen her, but her tear-streaked face was a downside. My heart was full of self-reproach for making her cry. I can't imagine marrying anyone other than David. I can't find anyone better. David never laughed at my dream, even at this age, and told me it was wonderful. Maria, crying in my arms, turned and began to persuade Charles. She didn't seem to care that her makeup was running. She was trying so hard to get our marriage approved. Seeing her like this made me realize again how important Maria was to me. Maria, understand, I'm saying this for your sake. But Charles didn't change his mind. I gently rubbed Maria's back as she continued to cry in my arms. Maria, please don't cry. I'm sorry. If I were a bit smarter, I could have solved this problem quickly. The guilt inside me grew. Maria said she wanted to marry me, but I wondered if I was good enough for her. Maybe there was someone more suitable for her than me. It's because David didn't handle things properly that Maria is crying. What are you going to do about it? Today was supposed to be an important day for my daughter. Ignoring the fact that he contributed to making his daughter cry, Charles blamed me. I can't become family with someone like you. He pointed his finger at my face, saying those words with a hateful expression. My son's poor. He's a disgrace to the family. Just as Charles uttered this shocking insult, Joseph arrived at the venue. It's not surprising that Joseph is here since he is one of the invited guests. But why is he the only guest who showed up? As I watched him, puzzled, Joseph frowned and began to condemn Charles. Do you know whose fault it is that the guests didn't come? It seems Joseph overheard the earlier conversation. He glared at Charles with an expression I had never seen before. Then, he approached us and, pointing at Charles, continued. David, Maria, it was actually this man who gave the guests the wrong date and time. I later learned that Joseph happened to visit the wedding venue today. Joseph wasn't there to attend the wedding, but to ask the staff about the ceremony. Joseph had planned a surprise event for the wedding. He wanted to perform a magic trick and needed to know the stage size at the venue. That's why he visited the venue and saw Charles making a phone call outside the building. I overheard your phone conversation a few minutes ago. I can't believe you planned such a scheme to frame my brother. Joseph explained to us what he had overheard. Charles was talking to his wife on the phone and said, You oppose Maria's wedding as a mother, right? You don't want her to marry a poor man. His voice was filled with disdain, so Joseph immediately knew something was wrong. As Joseph listened in, he discovered a shocking truth. I've already given them the wrong date, but I'm worried. If any guests contact you today, make sure to mislead them. Don't tell them the correct date. I even asked the staff weeks ago and got the guest list. Charles had deliberately given the guests the wrong date. He met with the venue staff without my knowledge and obtained the guest list. The staff turned pale upon hearing this and apologized to me. We never imagined. We are so sorry. We thought it was okay to tell him since he's the bride's family. No, you're not to blame. It's not something anyone would normally think of. I had my thoughts about Charles's actions, but I didn't intend to blame the staff. As I said earlier, no one normally does such mean-spirited things. Seeing the conversation settle, Joseph continued. So, I called the guests I knew, just to be sure, and as I suspected, Charles had told them the date was changed. He's truly a terrible person. Filled with anger, Joseph headed to the stage. I watched, wondering what he was doing, and he looked around the venue from the stage, muttering, "I knew it." Apparently, he had something to confirm. After confirming, Joseph spoke to us. "David, look closely at the decorations in the venue. See the crackers all over the place." Following Joseph's prompt, I looked around and saw crackers scattered throughout the room. They were probably set to go off simultaneously as part of some performance. However, it was the kind of performance I wanted to avoid the most, because I get on edge at sounds like that. Especially since I was injured in an incident during work decades ago. It brings back unpleasant memories. This, too, was something Charles had told the staff without my knowledge. From the stage, Joseph glared at Charles, who was now sweating nervously. "Charles, you are a failure as a father. It's unthinkable to ruin your daughter's special day like this. And trying to pin the blame for the invitation mistake on David. Look at Maria's face and see what you've done." Faced with Joseph's accusation, Charles turned to look at his daughter's face and turned pale. I've rarely seen my usually mild-mannered brother show such anger. In fact, I don't recall him ever being this angry. Maria, who is also usually gentle, was glaring at Charles. I couldn't recall ever seeing her angry at anyone either. But this time, she couldn't forgive what had happened. Charles, now sweating profusely, began to panic under his daughter's angry gaze. He had always doted on his daughter, so this reaction was understandable. He would always prepare lavish gifts for Maria's birthday and promptly provide anything she wanted. Even at the age of 80, Charles tried to fulfill his role as a parent. But this wasn't what his daughter wanted. Standing next to me, Maria spoke to Charles. "Dad, I'm shocked that you would do such a thing. Do you know how long I've been looking forward to this day? You've ruined our wedding. Even if we change the date suddenly, we don't know how many people will be able to come. The scheduled time for the ceremony is just a few minutes away, so contacting people now would be difficult. It's unlikely anyone could arrive by the start time. Since there are other weddings today, we can't extend the ceremony time. The venue we booked is quite popular, so rescheduling is also difficult. If we hold the wedding today, it will be without guests." Maria was really looking forward to today's ceremony. She probably wanted to be celebrated by many people. It was Charles who caused this shock to her. The disappointment Maria felt must be overwhelming. "I can't think of you as family anymore, Dad." Mom, even though she's not here, would feel the same. "It's so unpleasant. Don't ever get involved with us again." Charles, shocked by Maria's declaration, tried to approach her. But Maria distanced herself, rejecting him. "No, Maria, don't be so cold. Do you know how much I care about you? It doesn't matter. Are you asking me to sacrifice my wedding for you? This is a once-in-a-lifetime important ceremony. I am absolutely going to marry David, so don't interfere. But he's poor, and he isn't a good match for you. I don't want to hear another word from you, Dad. Leave the venue right now." Charles, overwhelmed by his daughter's harsh words, slumped to the ground in shock. Joseph continued his attack. "Charles, you called my brother poor earlier, but don't you know?" Hearing Joseph's words, Charles looked at us, confused. "What? Isn't that true? I remember hearing it when I first met David. He said his family was poor when he was young." Joseph sighed and partially denied and confirmed his words. "In a way, that's true, but you're mistaken. Our family home is a huge mansion in the city with significant assets. We donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to disaster relief worldwide every year." Charles's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? What are you saying?" "It might have been relatively poor compared to now, but we were never destitute. When we were kids, our father's business was uncertain, so we practiced frugality, but we never lacked clothing or food. What I meant was that our past was relatively poor compared to now." But Charles had misunderstood. Covering his face with his hands, Charles began to regret his actions. "What have I done? I was wrong from the very beginning." No one was there to comfort Charles as he voiced his regret in a pained voice. He left the venue in a dejected state and apparently ran into a few men and women outside the building. They were people Joseph had called, mutual friends of me and my brother. Having heard the situation from Joseph over the phone, they were able to arrive quickly since they lived nearby. Joseph contacted them immediately after discovering Charles's misdeeds. They decided to attend the wedding upon hearing the news and arrived, only to encounter Charles outside the venue. They harshly criticized Charles for his actions. "We heard from Joseph. You deliberately gave the wrong date for the wedding. Unbelievable. This is your beloved daughter's wedding, right? How could you do such a thing? If it were me, I'd cut ties with you." Overwhelmed by their anger, Charles fled the scene. The wedding proceeded with a few guests who managed to come on short notice, though the number of attendees was far smaller than planned. The ceremony went on for those who made the effort to be there. One fortunate highlight was the performance of a world-renowned pianist who offered to play for free. The mother of the lost child I helped earlier came to the wedding venue to thank me. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter. I really wanted to show my gratitude, so I came here. If you need any help, I'm more than happy to offer my assistance." When I handed over the girl, I briefly mentioned today's plans. Hearing that, she came to celebrate our wedding, even though we were strangers. It was a surprise to find out that she, who left her child with the grandparents to come here, was a world-renowned figure. Usually, you need tickets that cost thousands of dollars to hear me play, but as a thank you for helping my daughter, it's free today. I'll give you a grand performance. Her brilliant performance brightened the gloomy atmosphere of the wedding. Additionally, Joseph's magic show brought some joy, preventing the day from being only a sad memory. Everyone, thank you for coming on such short notice. It was a tough day, but we are lucky to have such wonderful friends. By the end of the ceremony, Maria was smiling, and I was glad. 3 days later, after the wedding, we completed various procedures and officially became a married couple. We are now preparing to move in together. During this time, a remorseful Charles visited us. Since we were in the middle of moving Maria's belongings, Charles offered to help. "I want to make amends. I'll do anything. Just please forgive me." By then, our anger had somewhat subsided, so we decided to accept his offer. Charles helped carry the boxes. He seemed to be working hard, so we let our guard down. I thought he had changed his ways, but that wasn't the case. He sneaked into my private room and tried to steal work-related documents. The documents I kept at home weren't very important, and I made sure not to bring critical work documents home. So, even if he had stolen them, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but that's not the point. "I can't believe you would do this. I never want to see you again, Dad." Maria caught him in the act and severely scolded him before throwing him out of the house. Shortly after, Maria received a call from her mother, which only made her angrier. Mom was awful. She kept telling me to forgive Dad and didn't consider my feelings at all. It seemed that this incident was the last straw for Maria. She decided to cut ties with her mother as well. After that, Charles no longer showed up in front of us. It was expected since he caused trouble twice and was disowned by Maria. Then, a victim from a case I solved decades ago came to visit. They were about elementary school age at the time. "Thank you so much for what you did back then. I never imagined we'd encounter a dangerous fugitive on our way home from school." As adults, they repeatedly thanked me. It seems they now each have families and children. They said they wanted to express their gratitude again, as they couldn't have such families if I hadn't helped them back then. Maria, intrigued, asked about that time. "David, was it something dangerous at work? If you can't talk about it, that's okay." Wanting to reassure her, I sought permission from the two in front of me and then recounted the events. That was a tough one. It was a rare dangerous case for this area, actually. That happened when I was around 40 years old. It was a violent incident that suddenly occurred in this peaceful region, so I remember it well. A male suspect being interrogated had grabbed a gun from an officer and escaped. I received the news while patrolling in a police car, As I cautiously searched the area, I encountered the suspect, but then a serious problem arose. The fugitive took some passing elementary school children hostage. Something so serious happened. You weren't hurt, were you? Miraculously, no. I reassured Maria with a smile, not wanting to worry her with the details, but it was far from a simple case. The officer with me at the time was a rookie and panicked. I had to resolve the situation alone. The suspect fired the gun multiple times, which left me somewhat traumatized. However, as evidenced by the fact that I'm here today, neither I nor the two children were seriously injured, and I managed to resolve the incident. It took quite an effort to subdue the suspect, but I'm truly grateful no one was injured. However, that experience made me avoid relying on others as much as possible. I can't thank you enough. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I owe my life to you, so feel free to ask for anything. After catching up, I decided to take them up on their offer. The woman worked for a stationery company, so she helped me find appropriate cards to send apologies related to the wedding. The man worked for a gift company, so he suggested suitable apology gifts. Even though it was Charles's fault, I wanted to apologize to those who were disappointed they couldn't attend the wedding. Charles still hadn't apologized to those who planned to attend, so I took care of it instead. For those I couldn't apologize to in person, I sent cards and gifts by mail. For the others, I visited them, expressed my apology, and handed over the gifts. Everyone accepted the apologies and appreciated the gesture, which was a relief. Some recent cards I received had words of encouragement and thanks for the gifts. Those I apologized to in person said they were happy when we ran into each other. Most of those who couldn't attend were pleased, making me glad I relied on others. The children I once saved from a criminal had grown up and now helped me. Thinking about this filled my heart with warmth. Afterward, Charles was shunned by our relatives. Guests and Joseph had explained the situation, and the incident had become a topic of gossip. Even if they come from a historic family, what really matters is their character. I don't want anything to do with people like that anymore. Hearing such things from relatives, Charles felt increasingly isolated. Moreover, since his beloved daughter Maria stopped visiting her parents' house, he experienced lonely days. 6 months after the wedding, I saw them by chance, and they looked incredibly aged. Now, they regret their actions and often say, "We shouldn't have done that." Meanwhile, Maria and I live peacefully in a house in the city. I'm still working as a police officer, but the area is very peaceful. There are days without any incidents, making it quite a calm job. The world is getting more dangerous lately, but is this area safe? I think it's fine. We don't hear much about such things at the station. It's a rare job to have so much free time, which means there are no victims in trouble. I hope these peaceful days continue. However, Joseph scolded me about the wedding incident. Since then, Joseph has called me multiple times to lecture me. You need to rely on others more. It's good to act with responsibility. But if you had properly shared the task of sending invitations, Charles wouldn't have had the chance to cause trouble. I have no response and just listen to his lengthy lectures each time. But I know he's right. The wedding and the invitations were things I couldn't handle alone. From now on, I'll try to rely more on others. It may seem a bit embarrassing to be stumbling over such small things at 60, but I'll remember this for the rest of my life with Maria.